Greetings, peoples of the interwebs. Just finished the most recent Marvel Netflix series, Iron Fist. So, for a show called Iron Fist, that's all about a martial arts master, there's very little Iron Fist. And the martial arts choreography and fight scenes are a little. Just. kind of tame. Not that great. And it sucks. A show like Iron Fist doesn't quite deliver on him being the Iron Fist, like using the Iron Fist to like punch people or whatever, and having I wouldn't quite say poor choreography in the fight scenes, just nothing like just nothing that impressive. Which and obviously I know that every Netflix series with the Marvel shows has like a different team of creative consultants and showrunners and all that stuff. But I feel like they really could have benefited from just taking the same stunt coordinators and choreographers who worked on Daredevil, because some of the stunt work in Daredevil and fight scenes were outstanding. Just the fight scene alone in, I think it was episode 2 of season 1 of Daredevil, that hallway fight scene was amazing, because it felt real, like it wasn't too over the top. You actually believed that Matt Murdock could pull off those stunts, and they just seemed very, very, very real, but at the same time incredibly impressive. And that's kind of what I was hoping for with Iron Fist and some of the fight scenes. And there's some cool fight scenes, but I feel like they could have been so much more than what they were. There's actually an episode, I think it was like 2 or 3 in Iron Fist, that could have easily been much like that hallway fight scene in season 1 of Daredevil, and it was cool. Like, it was fine. It was by no means terrible, but it was just I don't know. Maybe my expectations were too high, but it was something where I was kind of like, oh, this is gonna be a great scene, and the scene ends, and it wasn't. Again, it was just a little disappointing, because I guess I was expecting and kind of hoping more for kind of fight choreography, much like in Daredevil. So maybe that's partially my fault for having such high expectations. But at the same time, it's kind of like, come on, Iron Fist, he's a martial arts master. Come on. And even the fight scenes in the show that aren't again, they're not terrible, but maybe it's the editing or something, or again, maybe it's just like not the best stunt coordinators and choreographers, because again, so the fight scenes just didn't feel they just didn't flow all that well. Whereas again, in Daredevil, the fight scenes just felt they flowed really well. They felt very fluid, very natural. Whereas in this, it almost seems like it's just, you can almost tell that the stunt people are kind of off camera, just kind of like, okay, yeah, to your left, to your right, block, kick. So it just felt very. I don't know. It just didn't feel very natural. It just felt very much like they are following the directions of their, stunt coordinator and choreographers to do the fight scenes for the most part. The acting is okay for the most part, just all across the board. From start to finish. There are definitely some people who are less than stellar. And then there's some people who steal scenes and are actually really good. So just as a whole, the acting is just kind of very middle of the road, very mediocre. The main problem with this show, for me, is the writing and the directing. Because a lot of the dialogue in Iron Fist is just. I don't know. It's just not very impressive at all. It just feels kind of soap opera-y with just the delivery and just some of the dialogue. Just it feels very much like a soap opera a lot of times in this show, which every Marvel show kind of does its own thing. Daredevil was the kind of classic vigilante story. Jessica Jones was a psychological thriller. Luke Cage was more of a crime drama. So if their goal was to kind of make like a soap opera type show in the Marvel Universe, then I guess they succeeded in that. But I don't think that was their goal. And I was really hoping that this would kind of be almost like, feel like a throwback to a lot of those old, martial arts and kung fu movies that I grew up watching where, they might be a little cheesy, but again, the stunt work and choreography are all fantastic. You believed whatever characters were on screen fighting each other, you believed that, it looked real. But yeah, a lot of the problems that I have with this show come from the scripting. Because in some of the acting, I don't even know if it is so much the actor's fault, like that they aren't that good at acting, or if a lot of it comes down to the script, and they're just kind of doing the best with what they have, which in a lot of scenes in this show, unfortunately, they don't have a whole lot to work with. And if you have a bad script, that really can hinder a series or a movie. Look at the Star Wars prequels. A lot of great actors in the prequels, but bad script, and they can only do so much with that script and the dialogue that they are given. So again, who knows how much of it is the acting, the actor's fault, or how much is the script? I imagine a little bit of both, but for the most part, I just think a lot of it was poor writing and the script storytelling, and even the directing. And it's kind of a shame because the showrunner, if I'm not mistaken, Scott Buck, also did Dexter, which is a phenomenal show, one of my favorite shows. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. The show just doesn't seem like it has a good grasp on its identity. Like, it's not sure what it wants to be. There are moments where it feels like it's kind of trying to be like a throwback to those old kung fu movies, and then there are other times where it just feels like a soap opera, and then there are other elements where it's kind of trying to be like a corporate, almost like a legal drama, where there's all sorts of corporate meetings, or they're trying to figure out what to do with the investors and all that stuff, which was completely unnecessary for the most part. I think there were elements where, it kind of fit in the story, but then there were some times where it focused too much on that. And there were just some scenes where, you were expecting the scene to wrap up, and it just lingered on that scene, and you're kind of like, okay, let's speed this along. This show is called Iron Fist, not these two people who have nothing really to do with the overall plot of the show talking about whatever it is they're talking about, whether it be Rand Enterprises and whatever they're going to invest in next. That's not really that relevant to the story. And again, that's another pacing issue with this show, is the pacing is kind of off, where again, there'll be episodes where it's kind of building up to something, and then it just kind of dies down. So Iron Fist is definitely the weakest of the Netflix shows, the Netflix Marvel shows, I should say. However, all that being said, all my criticisms, I don't think it quite warrants the hate that this show has accumulated. Before it officially dropped on Netflix, a lot of websites and reviewers got to, I think, watch the first half of the show, which admittedly is the weakest part. It does get better towards the second half, but it's still not great. In a way, you could almost skip the first half and just start with episode 6, and you might actually be fine. But a lot of people are just kind of tearing it apart, and again, there are definitely things to really just rip apart and criticize. But again, yes, it's by no means great, but it is not awful either. And again, I don't think it warrants the hate that it has garnered with some of the reviewers and critics. But again, that's just me, though. I was really looking forward to this series. I was hoping it would be a lot better than what it turned out to be. And again, who knows I'm sure there are a lot of factors, like maybe they felt like they had to kind of rush this to build up to the Defenders. Maybe, because I know the showrunner, Scott Buck, is also the showrunner on Inhumans, which I think is also kind of in production right now. So maybe it was one of those things where he was kind of spread thin, working on production, show running Iron Fist and also working on Inhumans. Which honestly that kind of gets me a little apprehensive towards Inhumans, since it's the same showrunner. But I've only seen 2 shows from the guy, one of which was fantastic, the other, Iron Fist, not as much. So who knows what Scott Buck will get? Maybe we'll get the Dexter Scott Buck, where again the first 4 seasons in particular, Dexter, were amazing, some of the best television you'll ever see. So it's really hard to say. Obviously, they're all factors. Really kind of contributed to the lackluster, just the overall show being very lackluster and kind of underperforming pretty much in every regard. But again, even with my criticisms, even with all the negative things in this show, there are some good moments. Jessica Henwick, who plays Colleen Wing, does really good. She's actually a standout and does a really good job. Like, I would actually like to see a mini series on her character. Also, Madame Gao, who's in mostly season 1 of Daredevil, but she also, I believe, was in 1 episode of season 2. She plays a much larger role in Iron Fist, and she does fantastic. I forget the actress's name, but she pretty much steals everything she's in. She's great, and I don't know. Oddly enough, I feel like she was one of the more developed characters where they gave her enough to kind of work with, because you're always kind of trying to figure out where she fits into this whole with the hand, because there are moments. I'm going to try to overall keep this relatively spoiler free, or at least major spoilers, but there are moments where she clearly is with the hand, but she's kind of got her own splinter faction of the hand, where she kind of does her own thing that the normal hand, or the main organization of the hand, kind of frowns upon, and they're not on good terms. They're kind of at odds with each other. They're kind of trying to undercut each other's authority and all that stuff. So it's kind of I really don't know if she's just straight up evil, or which is another problem with this show, is they kind of flip flop between villains. There's one character that they kind of set up to be the main villain. Relatively well enough, and then another character kind of shows up, and then they're kind of trying to build them up to be the main villain, and then so again, they're just, there's 3 characters who they're kind of setting up to be the main villains, Madame Gao being one of them, who she succeeds. The actress does really good. I think they did a good job with her, but again, I still think it's unclear what her motives are. Whether she just wants to kind of do her own thing. She's not really hell-bent on destroying the world, or whatever it is the main faction of the Hand are trying to do. Which, I don't know, could be a benefit because it leaves her a bit more ambiguous. Maybe that'll be a bigger part in the Defenders and later Netflix shows. Who knows, she could be the main villain of Iron Fist Season 2. Hard to say. Again, there are some decent moments in the show, but as a whole, it's just kind of, it's just very meh. I don't really have strong feelings towards the show. I don't really have strong feelings against it. I can't outright tell people to avoid watching this show, but I can't give a glowing endorsement of the show either. If someone asks me, should I watch Iron Fist, I'll kind of be like, if you're already invested in the story of the Netflix shows, go for it. If you've already seen all of Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, go for it. But if you're kind of I haven't seen any of the shows, it looks kind of cool, then I'll be like, I don't know. I don't have a definitive answer for you. I can't entirely endorse it, but also can't just dissuade people from watching it, which hopefully, with my criticisms and I guess overall negativity towards the show, hopefully I'm not swaying people from watching or dissuading people from watching the show, because again, you may end up liking it. People who are watching this review, you may end up loving it. You might like it more than I do, even if you don't, again, have a glowing endorsement of the show. You just may enjoy it more than I do. It's just for me personally, it didn't. Just very middle of the road. Just very kind of meh. But yeah, I will say this: it's definitely not the worst comic book show I've ever seen. It's got that going for it. It's not the greatest either, by no means. By no means is it the greatest, but it's also not the worst. There are far worse. So, and I guess on a more positive note, even though I was not too crazy about the show as a whole, I am curious to see, it hasn't really, made me apprehensive or kind of skeptical of The Defenders, which comes out later in the fall. It actually I would like to see the characters in Iron Fist, not just Danny Rand and Finn Jones, but I'd like to see the characters from this first season. I'm not completely opposed to a second season. I would just like to see a different creative team kind of spearhead a second season. Because there was enough kind of good moments with the characters to where I'm kind of like, okay, I'll see more of them in another, again, in a future season. Just hopefully they'll do better with the writing and all that stuff. So, again, there is some positivity in the show. Just for me personally, there's enough good to warrant me being interested in seeing more of Iron Fist, Calling Wing, and some of the other characters in whether it be Defenders or season 2 of Iron Fist. But I will say this though. Really, all of these Netflix shows, these Marvel Netflix shows, I think could definitely benefit from having a few episodes cut. Just do a solid 8 to 10, which is one thing with Defenders. Defenders is only going to be an 8 episodes, which I think is good. You don't need to drag the story out. Season 1 of Daredevil did go with 13 episodes. None of them really felt like filler. They kind of, drug on. Whereas there were moments in season 2, as much as I liked it, that just weren't really necessary, and same with Jessica Jones. As much as I love Jessica Jones as well, there were some times where I'm like, you maybe could have just chopped 3, just cut it down to 10 episodes, a good solid 8-10 episodes. Just streamline the story. You don't have to worry about kind of padding out time to fill out that 13 episode quota. Same thing with Luke Cage. I liked the first half, and then the second half just kind of tapered off, and I was not that big of a fan of it. So hopefully going forward after the Defenders, I guess when Marvel does their, phase 2 of the Netflix series, they'll kind of take some of the criticisms of not just Iron Fist, but some of the other shows, because a lot of people that I've talked to and seen reviews of all kind of agree that they could definitely benefit from shortening the episodes to again 8 to 10 per season for all the characters. So hopefully they'll kind of take the constructive criticism that a lot of fans and critics and reviewers have had of this of all these series, and again trim some of the episodes. That way they can just focus on a solid story, however many episodes it is. Even if they only need 6-7 episodes, I'm fine with that. Just tell a good story, regardless however many episodes you need. Just do that. So yeah, hopefully going forward that's something that they'll kind of take notice of and maybe fix, or again if they're still dead set on that 12-13 episode quota, just again don't have the filler episodes or the ones that just kind of, they're not really necessary. They don't really propel the story forward. They're kind of just there. But again, these are just my opinions. I think this pretty much wraps up this review. Hopefully you all have enjoyed. And again, hopefully I haven't talked you all out of watching the show if you haven't already. If you have seen it, leave your comments below on what you thought. I'm genuinely curious to see what other people think of the show. And again, I hope that more people will actually enjoy this. Because I would actually like to see a season 2. And I want to see more of these characters in, again, a season 2 or Defenders and other Netflix shows. whether it be crossovers with Danny Rand and Luke Cage, which would actually be awesome, or whoever. I think it would be pretty cool. But before I wrap this up, as always, you can like us on Facebook at Pacey Productions, get news and updates and all things going on with the channel and all things kind of adjacent to the channel, like just other projects we're working on with another YouTube channel or another podcast. Same thing with Twitter. So follow us on Twitter at PaceyPro. You can follow me at Irishman Jake, and also another review I'll probably be doing this weekend is Power Rangers comes out. So I'll definitely be seeing that this weekend. So I'll probably have my review, I don't know, at some point in the week. I'm not entirely sure what day I'll see it. So between, Friday and Sunday. Also, a new podcast will probably be uploaded probably later this evening at the time of this recording. Maybe Thursday at the latest, but more than likely later tonight. And also, this weekend, I'll be recording episode 2 of the new podcast that I started up with my friend Will, Shogun's Gateway to Anime, which is basically a podcast all about anime and, just anime, some of our favorite shows. In episode 2, we'll actually be discussing a couple shows. We'll be reviewing them, kind of ranking them, how we feel about them, and then just kind of talking more about other shows that we might start watching or just shows that we're currently watching. So, just be keeping up with the social medias and all things going on with, again, Pacey Productions here and the kind of adjacent channels and podcasts me and some of the other members of Pacey are affiliated with. But that wraps up this review. Hopefully you all have enjoyed, and until next time, everyone, cheers.